Welcome back to Breitbart News' continuing live coverage of the Democratic National Convention here in Charlotte, North Carolina. And as promised, candidate for president for the Libertarian Party, Governor Gary Johnson of New Mexico.
Great to be on with you.
Thank you for joining us.
I love being here because this is like the most efficient use of time, being able to,
bounce from show to show.
Bam, bam, bam. This is terrific.
Well, and we're just thrilled to have you because you're the first politician who isn't a Republican who would sit and talk with us. We can't get Democrats to talk to us. They're just going to the liberal left-leaning shows.
Well, and so I'm more liberal than Obama. I'm more conservative than Romney. That's the libertarian lot.
Unbelievable. I want to explore that. Were you in Tampa? Did you go to the RNC as well?
Yeah.
So I'm curious, where do you feel more at home at this point? Because you were a Republican governor, right?
I feel at home in both places. The notion that people really do care about civil liberties, people really do care about the fact that we're in a state of endless, perpetual war. And people really care about a balanced budget. The notion that there are ramifications to continuing to borrow and print money to the tune of 43 cents out of every dollar we spend. So balance the federal budget now.
Yeah, and well, forget about balancing the budget. This party hasn't even presented a budget of any kind, let alone balancing it.
Right. I mean, you got both parties right now arguing over who's going to spend more money on Medicare. We have to slash Medicare spending, or we're going to find ourselves without any health care at all. We're going to find ourselves with a collapsed government.
All right, so we have senior citizens who, for their entire career, their entire life, there is money taken out of their paychecks to pay for Medicare. They were made a promise when they entered the workforce that we're going to take this money out. Right now, obviously, that money goes to, at the time they started working, that money went to support Medicare for senior citizens at that time. Now they have reached retirement age, and you're saying slash Medicare. What do you say to those people who have spent their whole life with this compact with the federal government?
Well, the compact is that you pay in. Let's just round off here. The compact is that you pay in $2 and you collect $8. It doesn't add up, and that's the system. So
they've been lied to for decades about this. We understand that.
Well, by lied to, I think everybody recognizes that you pay in $2 and you're going to receive $8 in benefit, and that doesn't add up. So if you're paying in this case, look, if you're paying in $1, you should get $1 worth of benefit. But you're paying in $1 and you're getting $4 worth of benefit.
So you would just start slashing right now.
Well, by slashing,
I'm using your word.
Well, yes. 43% reduction. I oversaw the reform of Medicaid in the state of New Mexico as governor. We took it from a fee-for-service model to a managed care model, saved hundreds of millions of dollars, set up better health care networks. Larry, at the time, I believe if the federal government would have granted the state of New Mexico 43% less money, done away with all the strings and the mandates associated with the delivery of health care to the poor, I could have overseen that. Apply that same template to Medicare. 50 laboratories of innovation and best practice, the states, give health care to the states, poor and those over 65, cut the spending by 43%, and I think with 50 laboratories working on this, that you'd have fabulous success that would get emulated. You'd also have horrible failure that would get avoided. But the notion of 50 different states working on this as opposed to Washington top-down, they've got all the answers, that has us in the predicament that we're in right now.
Well, and that idea appeals to me as a right-leaning person. I think that there is obviously a libertarian streak with regard to federal issues, to state issues that dwells within the conservative end of the spectrum of the Republican Party. The question, I think, and I'm being a devil's advocate now on behalf of the Democrats, what happens to the people who live in that state that screws up? I mean, there are 50 laboratories. Laboratories are meant to be experiments. What about the experiment that fails? The guy living in Wyoming, and that government failed them, and you've got people who are going to, die on the streets because Medicare failed.
Well, and, the whole notion of dying on the streets. I was the governor of New Mexico for 2 terms. I made a name for myself vetoing bills. I may have vetoed more legislation than the other 49 governors in the country combined. So I'm used to the argument that people are going to be dead in the streets as a result of all the bills that I vetoed.
Yeah.
And by the way, only 2 were overturned, so it made a difference when it came to billions of dollars worth of spending, and the sky was going to fall every single day. People were going to be dead on the streets, kids were going to starve, you name it, and guess what? None of that happened.
Yeah, but you're Gary Johnson, and you were a great governor. I'm talking about, listen, I got Jerry Brown in California, all right? So I'm not going to trust Jerry Brown with my retired parents' health care decisions, but I'm stuck with him. What do I do?
Well, I'm going to suggest that, using your example, we can walk with our feet, and or we can vote with our feet, and so we move to a state. So we move. But every state's going to be competitive. Look, nobody is going to tolerate inefficient government if it really is on a competitive basis. Best practices will get emulated.
Let's move off that. Let's go to. I think people think Gary Johnson and your run for president on the Libertarian ticket, and one of the things that grabs some headlines is you would really like to explore the legalization of drugs, or the decriminalization of drugs. I think is the way to put it.
Well, I advocate legalizing marijuana. I think we're at a tipping point on this issue. It's on the ballot in Colorado this November to regulate marijuana like alcohol. It's terrifically named. 6 years ago, citizens of Denver voted to decriminalize marijuana on a campaign based on marijuana being safer than alcohol. It passed. So I think that's going to be the tipping point. I think that's going to be the tipping point for 50 states bringing about rational drug policy with regard to marijuana. Once we legalize marijuana, and I believe it's going to happen, and we recognize also that the sky isn't going to fall, that actually the planet's a better place to live when you got police going out and enforcing real crime, when you clear up the court dockets, and when you actually fewer people in jail. I mean, we got 2.3 million people behind bars in this country. On a numbers basis, we have more people incarcerated in this country than any other country. China, 4 times the population. They have 1.5 million people behind bars. This is the country of liberty and freedom? No, not when it comes to marijuana. Not when it comes to decisions that perhaps you should be making and not the government. We've made criminals of tens of millions. We've made felons of tens of millions of Americans that, but for our drug laws, would not be felons. They would otherwise be tax-paying, law-abiding citizens.
I'm curious, when you send that message, either here at the DNC or down in Tampa at the RNC, which party warms up to that idea more?
You know what? It crosses party lines.
Does it?
We're at 50% of Americans now supporting this idea. Why is the number so high? It's because people are talking about it. The more people talk about it, the more people recognize that this is just like the prohibition of alcohol. It should be a decision that you make. Now, if you're going to smoke pot, become impaired, get behind the wheel of a car, that's going to always be criminal. But that's what should be criminal, not the fact that you make decisions that just like drinking and border violence. Look, drug violence. These are disputes that are being played out with guns rather than the courts. Legalize it, you're going to put these disputes in the courts.
So this is the part I never get about this. Paint this picture for me. What does it look like? Gary Johnson is president. We move forward and we legalize pot. You liken it to alcohol. Well, I can go to the store and buy alcohol. I can go to a restaurant and have a glass of beer with my dinner. How do I obtain my marijuana? Also, is it a 21-year-old limit, just like with alcohol?
So it's going to be a 50-state phenomenon. 50 states are going to regulate this just like they do alcohol. That's going to be the template, and that should be the template.
Is there a reason why somebody under 18 should not be able to smoke marijuana?
States are going to put an age limit on it, but. So one of the big criticisms, more kids are going to smoke pot. I don't buy that at all. And by the way, when it comes to my kids, I love my kids. To think that they're not going to smoke marijuana, that would be naive on my part.
Don't you think that some people don't smoke pot because it's illegal?
Absolutely.
And as soon as it's legalized, we'll have a lot more people smoking pot?
And you know what the overwhelming reaction is going to be when that happens? You're kidding. This has been criminalized all this time. This is benign. What have we been doing? That's going to be the reaction.
All right. You sound like a guy who has smoked pot.
I have. I'm one of the 100 million Americans who have smoked pot, and I've never been hypocritical on this issue. The big difference. I don't drink.
Inhale.
I did inhale. I don't drink. I don't smoke pot today. But the big difference between the two is that in no category is marijuana more dangerous than alcohol.
When was the last time you smoked pot?
I smoked pot for 3 years after experiencing a horrible paragliding accident in 2005.
Oh, okay. So 2008 then.
Yeah.
And why don't you smoke it anymore?
Well, for me, it's a handicap. It's something that I recognize is a handicap. And
what do you mean? What do you mean by that? What do you mean by handicap?
Well, I am an athlete. I'm running for president of the United States. Really, I want to be on top of my game all the time. So, but you're smoking pot, that's a decision that you should make. And if it's a decision that you do make, it shouldn't be in the criminal justice system, whether or not you go to jail for that or not. And I've never been hypocritical about this, ever.
And you were, now remind me again, you were a two-term governor.
Two-term governor of New Mexico, 95 through 2002, the state's 2-1 Democrat. I make a name for myself vetoing legislation and being a penny pincher.
Seeing that. Yeah, the big veto guy.
Well, the big veto guy, and I get reelected in a state that's 2-1 Democrat. So I just think it speaks volumes to the fact that people really appreciate good stewardship of tax dollars. People really appreciate the truth.
Yeah, we're almost out of time, and you're a man of demand. It's great to see you bouncing from show to show.
Yeah,
here.
no, it's
very
fun.
Cool.
It's fun.
I want to talk to you real fast about foreign policy. I think the Libertarian Party, in many ways, people think you have a bit of an Achilles heel there with regard to what has been traditionally America's foreign policy, at least for the last 50 years. Let's speak specifically about what happened last night here on the floor of the convention with the language inserted about Israel. What did you think of what you saw there?
What was the language? I didn't catch that.
My understanding is the language that was reinserted recognizes Jerusalem as the capital of Israel, that it was the Democratic Party's position. That had been removed. Now, there was also language that was removed that recognized Hamas as a terrorist organization. That language did not get put back in. But what is your, first of all, did you see the process? Did you see how they voted on it?
I didn't.
You got to see the video. It's really, because they needed a 2/3 vote, and it not even close. It wasn't even close. But what do you think of that? I mean, what is the Libertarian Party's position on the state of Israel and just in general our foreign entanglements? I'll go ahead and throw it that way.
It's our military interventions that need to stop. I think the unintended consequence of all of our military interventions are hundreds of millions of enemies against this country that, but for our military interventions, would not exist. So I think the biggest threat to our national security, I think, is the fact that we're borrowing and printing money to the tune of 43 cents out of every dollar that we spend. I am promising to submit a balanced budget to Congress in the year 2013. That would be a 43% reduction in military spending, which takes us back to the year 2003 when it comes to military spending. And I would argue that we do need to provide ourselves with a strong national defense. It's one of the fundamental roles of government. But I think defense is the operative word, not offense and not nation building.
Do you agree that Osama bin Laden and al-Qaeda, with the help of the Taliban in Afghanistan, attacked us on 9/11?
Yes, and I would have gone into Afghanistan. I supported Afghanistan.
How is that defense, though? Isn't that a military intervention?
Well, I think it was in response to being attacked. And so I would argue that after having been in Afghanistan for 6 months, we wiped out al-Qaeda. That was 11 years ago. We should have gotten out of Afghanistan 11 years ago. Okay. And we should have maintained our vigil against Osama bin Laden, and I believe that we would have been brought to justice.
Would you consider the Korean War to be a military intervention by the United States that was unnecessary and not constitutional?
I always get into trouble when I talk about things that I really don't understand, and I really don't understand the roots of our military intervention in Korea. I would say that the troops that we have in South Korea shouldn't be in South Korea, nor should our troops that are in Japan be in Japan. And I do talk about reducing our military footprint by 43%. That would be bases and military in uniform that are stationed in South Korea, Japan, Europe.
Like it or not, the military is a huge part of the budget, obviously, but also a huge part of our economy. There would be a significant economic impact for that kind of pullback.
That was, and just speaking of World War II, I mean, one of the big, huge concerns was, holy cow, we have all the, our service people coming back.
Right.
From
what are we going to do with these guys?
Well, and it was an economic boom, an unprecedented economic boom. So I'm advocating eliminating corporate tax, income tax, abolishing the IRS, replacing it with one federal consumption tax. I think we do that. I think we're going to see an entrepreneurial entrepreneurial explosion in this country as we've never seen.
So much to talk about in so little time. Can we have you back again sometime during your run for president?
You bet. You bet. Anytime.
Where can they find you? Is it Gary Johnson?
GaryJohnson2012.com.
GaryJohnson2012.com. I got to tell you, you've got a great operation. I get emails daily, more than one email daily from you guys. You are constantly sending out your position papers, your press releases, your information. You understand the internet. You understand how to use email to get your message out.
Well, thanks, Larry. And I'm really proud of the product that we're putting out every single day. And I think I'm providing a voice to what I believe are the majority of Americans that aren't being represented by either the Democrats or the Republicans.
There are quite a few who believe that. And paragliding, you still doing it or not so much?
I haven't done it since, but no, I would do it again. And I did suffer, I lost 1.5 inches in height.
Oh, this is a back
because of my crushed 12th T vertebrae.
Oh, but you would still go back and do it if you could?
Yeah.
Is that good a thrill? I've never done paragliding before.
Well, yeah, no, it was as is in the case with everything. This was my fault, anyway, it was a horrible User error, as is the case. Pilot error.
All right. That's Gary Johnson. Gary Johnson at 2012.com is the website, and he's running for president. And hopefully, you will get enough. I would love to see you on the stage at the debates. What is the rule there? Do you have to get? You have to poll around 10%?
We're supposed to be at 15%. Right now, Larry, I'm at 5% nationally. It's like the most underreported 5% of all time in space. And if I were reported at where we're actually at right now, the overwhelming reaction to Gary Johnson's at 5% would be, who the hell is Gary Johnson? And in that scenario, you know what? I'd fare all right.
Hey, in what state are you polling the best right now? Do you have a state-by-state?
New Mexico.
Oh, okay.
New Mexico. Makes sense.
Who does that hurt, do you think, more Romney or Obama? Because New Mexico's up for grabs in many respects.
In New Mexico, I take more votes away from Obama. They've actually put that to the test.
So Romney's going to start running ads for you.
Well, that's what they should do. They should both donate to my campaign.
All right. That's Gary Johnson. We'll be back. We got plenty more coming up. Stick with us at Breitbart News.